Callum Reid moved cautiously through the thick underbrush, every step muted by the layer of fallen leaves. Titan, his black German shepherd, padded silently beside him, ears twitching to the slightest sound. The forest had been quiet for miles, a silence that made Callum's chest tighten in ways he hadn't felt since leaving the army. Flint! No, Titan stopped first. One paw lifted mid-step, muscles tense like coiled steel. Callum's eyes followed his companion's gaze, and the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. No wind stirred the treetops, no bird sang, no squirrel scurried, nothing. Just an unnatural stillness that pressed against Callum's senses like a weight. Then he saw it, between the dark trunks of the pines. A shimmer glinted in the fading light. At first, he thought it was sunlight bouncing off a stream. But there was no stream, no movement, just a structure, impossible, colossal, and entirely made of glass. It reflected the forest around it so perfectly that it seemed almost invisible, like a ghost hovering in the clearing. Callum froze. He had seen war's impossible things, but nothing like this. The mansion loomed ahead, silent and pristine, its walls unbroken, windows perfectly clear, as if no human hand had ever left a fingerprint. Each pane reflected him, Titan and surrounding forest in precise, haunting detail. Titan growled low in his throat, his body rigid, tail stiff. The veteran took a careful step forward, hands raised to calm his dog. "Easy, boy," Callum whispered, though his voice sounded small in the immense stillness. The forest had changed. Even the scent of pine was muted, replaced by the faint metallic tang of something unfamiliar. The ground beneath his boots felt different here, as though the soil itself had hardened to glass dust. Every instinct in Callum's body screamed for him to leave. And yet, the pull of curiosity and the unshakable feeling that the mansion was waiting drew him closer. The first step onto the porch sent a shiver through his spine. It wasn't wood or stone. It was glass, cool, smooth, and unervingly solid. Titan hesitated but followed, nose twitching, ears forward, sensing the tension that Callum himself could barely articulate. Through the walls, Callum glimpsed rooms suspended in time. A dining room where silverware hovered midair, poised over plates with untouched food. A chandelier frozen, as though the wind had lifted it in a gentle swirl. A living room where a man appeared to be caught mid-laugh, his glassy eyes wide in perpetual surprise. Callum's pulse quickened. "What the hell?" he muttered under his breath. Titan pressed closer, growling, his gaze flicking from pane to pane as if trying to see beyond the reflections. Callum's eyes followed a corridor to its end. A figure appeared in one of the mirrored walls, standing, watching, not reflected, but real. Callum froze. The figure stepped closer, gliding, unnervingly calm, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He was tall, thin, dressed in an impeccable suit that seemed oddly out of place in the forest. "You shouldn't have found this place," the man whispered, his voice slicing through the silence like a knife. Callum's heart pounded. He looked down at Titan, whose hackles were raised and teeth bared. The dog growled, low and menacing, a warning Callum could not ignore. The mansion seemed to breathe around them. Walls pulsed with the reflections of the forest, the last rays of sun scattering across its glass like fire. Callum took a cautious step back, Titan at his side. "Who are you?" he demanded, keeping his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. The figure didn't answer. He just smiled again, then, with a motion too smooth, too precise to be human, vanished. Not through a door or window, simply disappeared. The reflection in the glass where he had stood remained, but empty, distorted, as if a shadow of his presence lingered. Titan barked sharply, spinning to face the nearest wall. Callum's stomach dropped. Through the glass, figures moved. Not reflections, real, impossible movements frozen mid-action. A woman raising her hand mid-step, a child reaching for a ball, a man frozen in mid-scream, eyes wide. Callum swallowed hard. Memories of his platoon, of missions and lost friends, flashed through his mind. A cold dread wrapped around him like a vice. He had seen death. He had survived impossible situations, but nothing prepared him for the unnatural serenity of this mansion. The whisper came again, closer this time. "You shouldn't have found this place." Callum spun around. Titan growled, fur bristling, eyes locked on the nearest doorway, a black void that led deeper into the mansion's heart. There was no one there, and yet the sense of being watched was suffocating. Something inside wanted them, or something inside didn't want them to leave. Callum clenched his fists. He wasn't going to run. Not without knowing what this place was, not without Titan at his side. But as he stepped toward the doorway, the air shifted. The mansion seemed to pulse. The frozen figures inside, the mid-motion, perfect snapshot to life, all seemed to turn slightly toward him. And in that instant, Callum realized that this place wasn't just glass. It was alive, and it had noticed them. Callum's heart thumped like a war drum in his chest. Titan's growl was low, deep, vibrating to the soles of Callum's boots. The forest around the mansion had vanished from memory. Only the glass walls, frozen figures, and a sense of being watched remained. Every instinct in his body screamed to run, but curiosity, that dangerous spark that had survived countless missions, kept him rooted in place. The doorway ahead, a black void framed by impossibly smooth glass, seemed to pulse like a living heartbeat. Callum stepped closer, Titan pressing by his side. His reflection fractured as the glass shifted, bending light in ways that made his stomach lurch. Then the man reappeared. He was no longer in the reflection. He stood in the room beyond the doorway, impeccably dressed, his thin fingers drumming lightly on the arm of a frozen chair. Every movement was precise, deliberate, unnervingly calm. Callum's throat went dry. "I was wondering when you'd arrive," the man said, his voice smooth as polished stone. No trace of malice, yet it set the hairs on Callum's neck standing. "Welcome. I've been expecting you." Callum took a cautious step forward. Who are you?" The man smiled, a flicker of amusement passing across his thin lips. "Names don't matter here. You may call me the Collector." Callum's brow furrowed. "The Collector?" "Yes." The man gestured to the room around them. Every figure froze in mid-action, captured mid-laughter or mid-stride, glimmered under the diffused sunlight streaming through the glass ceiling. "I preserve moments," he said, as though it explained everything. "Moments of beauty, of fear, of loss. The world forgets them too quickly. I simply keep them." Titan's hackles rose. He barked sharply, circling Callum, growling low. The Collector didn't flinch. In fact, he seemed to anticipate it, raising a thin hand as if to calm an unseen breeze. Callum swallowed hard, forcing his voice steady. You mean these people? They're alive." The Collector's eyes glittered with something unreadable. "Alive?" He laughed softly. "In a way, their last, perfect moment is preserved here, frozen in time, safe from decay, from death, from the chaos of the world. Don't you think that's beautiful?" Callum stepped closer, eyeing the figures. His chest tightened. He noticed a man in military gear, his body mid-fall, as if caught in combat. His breath hitched. "No, that can't be." Titan growled louder, backing him toward the nearest wall. Callum felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He could feel it now, a truth he wasn't ready to admit. The soldier, that soldier is Mason Cade. Mason, his closest friend from the war, lost years ago during an ambush. His eyes were wide, frozen in terror mid-scream. Callum felt a wave of nausea as memories surged back. The firefight, the flash of explosions, the moment Mason vanished without a trace. The Collector noticed Callum staring. He tilted his head, expression faintly amused. "Ah," he said softly, "I see you found him, one of your old friends." Callum's jaw tightened. "What did you do to him?" His voice was a growl. Titan growled in agreement, ears pinned back, body tense for action. The Collector's thin smile never wavered. "Do? Nothing. I simply preserved him. His last moment, beautiful, frozen, eternal. Would you not want that for yourself someday?" Callum felt rage bubble beneath his skin. "He's my friend. He didn't choose this." The Collector shrugged, almost imperceptibly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps he did. The choice is often subtle." Callum's mind raced. This man, this Collector, had captured Mason and likely countless others, freezing them in their final moments. How many? How long had this been going on? The sheer scale of it made his stomach turn. He glanced around. Each room they passed was a gallery of frozen existence. A mother reaching for a child, a couple laughing mid-dance, a man falling from a staircase frozen mid-step. The mansion seemed endless, every corner holding new horrors, new perfect moments stolen from time itself. Callum's hand went to his chest. He felt Titan stiffen beside him, hackles raised. The dog's gaze locked on something behind a glass pane, a small glimmer, subtle, almost imperceptible. Callum's heart froze. There, mid-room, was a soldier's reflection that did not match the light in the room. It flickered, and as Callum focused, the image solidified, revealing the unmistakable insignia of his old unit. His own heart skipped a beat. The soldier was Mason Cade. Callum's breath hitched. No, this isn't possible, he whispered. He reached for the glass, but Titan barked furiously, lunging forward to guard him. The collector's voice was soft, almost a lullaby. Do you see now? I did not take people. I take moments. Their fear, their joy, their last memory. And yes, your friend was ready for preservation. One cannot undo time, but one can preserve it. Forever. Callum shook his head, fury and disbelief warring inside him. He's not an object. The collector's eyes darkened briefly. Then the faint, chilling smile returned. Everything is an object in the end. Even you will understand in time. The mansion seemed to breathe, the walls shimmering like liquid glass. Every frozen figure appeared to shift subtly, as if responding to their presence. Titan barked again, more frantically, his gaze locked on the collector. The man's thin hand reached into his coat pocket. Callum stiffened. Titan growled, stepping forward protectively. The collector held up a small, delicate pendant, a shard of glass containing a flickering, living reflection of Titan himself. Callum's blood ran cold. What is that? The collector's eyes glittered. A token. Everyone has one. They are safe here, but only if I allow it. His smile widened, calm and eerie. Do you see, Callum Reid? You and your companion are not yet preserved, but you will be. The mansion has been waiting for you. Titan barked, lunging toward the pendant. The glass seemed to ripple under his paw. Callum barely managed to pull the dog back. The mansion vibrated with a strange energy, and the reflections in surrounding walls seemed to shiver as though awakening. Callum realized, with dawning horror, that this place was alive. Not just glass, not just walls, alive, sentient, and aware of every heartbeat, every fear. The collector was its master, or perhaps its servant. The man tilted his head once more, as if listening to a sound only he could hear. You should decide soon, he said softly. The mansion is patient, but it never forgets. Callum felt a cold sweat run down his spine. Every nerve screamed to flee, yet every instinct that kept him alive through combat whispered that running could be worse. And then, just as he gathered himself to speak, Titan stiffened, ears flat, hackles raised. A shadow moved across the far wall. Not a reflection, not a frozen figure. Something real, something coming for them. Callum grabbed Titan's collar, his pulse hammering. We need to move, he whispered, voice tight. But the mansion seemed to have other plans. From the corner of his eye, he saw it, a door that had not been there before, swinging open silently, inviting, no, taunting them. And behind it, a room brimming with glass figures, more than he could count. Their eyes seemed to plead, beg, and watch him at the same time. The collector stepped closer, calm, deliberate. Shall we see if you are ready for preservation, Callum? Titan growled, every muscle coiled, ready to fight. Callum's jaw tightened. He would not let this man, this monster, take them without a fight. But the mansion pulsed, walls vibrating, light bending unnaturally, as if it were alive. And in that instant, Callum understood, whatever this place was, it wanted them, and it would not let them leave. The collector's eyes gleamed. Come closer and all will be revealed. Callum swallowed hard, gripping Titan's collar, heart pounding in his chest. Step by step, he moved forward toward the room, toward the truth. Callum's fists clenched at his sides, Titan pressing close, growling low in his throat. The air inside the mansion felt heavier, almost viscous, as though time itself resisted their presence. Every step they took echoed unnaturally, muffled yet amplified at the same time. The glass walls shimmered faintly, reflecting the endless rows of frozen figures. People caught mid-laugh, mid-run, mid-fall, each trapped in eternity. Callum's eyes were drawn to a single figure, standing mid-combat in a hallway beyond the mirrored foyer. The insignia on the soldier's chest, the worn gear, the tilt of his head, all unmistakable. Mason Cade, his closest friend, missing for years, frozen in terror and pain. "Titan," Callum whispered, feeling his throat constrict. His dog whined softly, nudging him with his nose, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. Callum took a step closer, peering at Mason's glass-encased form. His chest tightened. He remembered Mason's laugh, the way he'd always crack jokes under fire, the promise he made to Callum to watch his back no matter what. And now, he was here, caught forever in the Collector's web. The Collector appeared behind him, moving without a sound. His smile was calm, deliberate, almost predatory. "Do you see him?" he asked. Mason's final moment, perfectly preserved, untouched by time, untouched by chaos. "Isn't it beautiful?" Callum shook his head violently. "Beautiful? He's my friend. You can't just freeze someone like this." The Collector's eyes flickered, faintly amused. "Freeze," he said, shaking his head. "I do not freeze. I preserve. Mason is here, yes, but only because he allowed it in his final instant. It is the greatest gift anyone can receive, to be remembered perfectly forever." Callum's fist tightened so hard his knuckles ached. He didn't choose this. The Collector tilted his head, studying Callum with a curious, almost affectionate gaze. Choices are subtle. Sometimes they are made in a heartbeat, in a whisper, in the edge of fear. Mason's last heartbeat made the choice for him. Callum stepped closer to the glass, his reflection merging with Mason's trapped figure. He pressed a hand against the pane, half expecting it to shatter, half expecting Mason to move. Titan growled, bristling fur against his chest. The dog's instinct screamed that the mansion was alive, a predator, not a gallery, and that the Collector was its voice, its agent. Callum's mind raced. The hallway beyond the glass was filled with more frozen figures. Soldiers, children, families, lovers, all captured mid-action, frozen mid-life. How many people had this man taken? How long had the mansion been doing this? He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold glass under his fingers. Titan suddenly barked sharply, spinning toward a corridor that had not been there moments ago. Callum followed the dog's gaze and froze. The mansion had shifted. Doors, walls, corridors, all reconfigured as if it were a living organism responding to their presence. Every reflection, every frozen figure, seemed to move subtly when they weren't looking directly, glimmers of motion in the corners of Callum's eyes. The Collector's voice broke the silence. "Curious, aren't you? I wonder how much you'll understand before it is your turn." Callum felt a flicker of fear that was all too familiar, the same cold, metallic dread that had gripped him during ambushes, during firefights, during moments when he had stared death in the face and prayed for a way out. But now, there was no enemy in front of him he could shoot, no cover he could run to. The mansion itself was the enemy, and the Collector was at heart. Callum's eyes returned to Mason. The soldier's face was frozen in terror, mid-scream, a hand outstretched as if reaching for help. Memories surged back. Mason disappearing into smoke and gunfire, the chaos of their mission. The moment Callum realized he had lost his friend forever. That moment, the instant of helplessness, the loss, the grief, now belonged to the Collector. Why are you doing this?" Callum demanded. His voice shook, tinged with rage. "Why trap them? Why Mason?" The Collector's smile was calm, almost sad. "Because moments are fleeting. Memories fade. Pain, joy, love, all lost in the passage of time. I preserve them, so they endure. Forever." Mason's final heartbeat. It was perfect. He was ready. "You may not understand, but one day you will." Callum's jaw tightened. His mind raced. He couldn't leave Mason here. Not like this. And yet, every instinct told him that this mansion, this Collector, was far beyond anything he had faced. Shattering the glass might not save Mason. It might destroy him, or worse. He felt Titan press closer, nuzzling against his leg. The dog whined, a sound of warning and worry, as if trying to tell Callum something he didn't yet understand. The mansion's walls pulsed faintly, the frozen figures' eyes flickering, their faces almost aware. Callum's pulse hammered. He knew what he had to do. He had to go deeper. He had to find the heart of the mansion, the source of its power. But as he turned toward the corridor Titan had marked, a sudden noise echoed to the glass walls, a shattering, a ripple of energy, and a whispering chorus of voices, low and urgent. The figures in the hallway seemed to stir, subtle shifts in posture, fleeting movements. Titan growled, hackles raised, ears pinned. Callum realized with horror the mansion was reacting. It was aware of them, and it did not want them leaving. From the corner of his eye, he saw it, a glass wall shimmering unnaturally, and inside, a faint motion that was not frozen. Something moving, shifting, almost human but distorted. The collector was nearby, but this was different. Callum's breath caught. Titan, stay close. The collector's calm, deliberate voice whispered again, closer than before. Every soldier has a final moment, Callum Reid. Some are chosen, some are taken. Callum's fist tightened around Titan's collar. He had no plan, no clear path forward, only one truth. Mason was here, trapped in glass, and if he didn't act, Titan and he could be next. He stepped toward the shimmering wall, Titan growling and ready to strike, when suddenly the mansion shuddered. The glass figure seemed to sway, just slightly, as if stirred by a hidden wind. And then, from behind were the frozen soldiers. A hand reached out, not glass, not frozen, real, trembling and beckoning. Callum froze, heart pounding. He knew instantly the mansion was alive. Mason might be lost forever, and whatever that hand belonged to, it was not waiting for him to hesitate. Callum felt the cold sweat prickling his skin as he stared at the trembling hand protruding from behind the frozen soldier. Titan growled low, body coiled like a spring, eyes fixed on the motionless yet somehow aware figure surrounding them. The air inside the mansion seemed thicker now, heavier, vibrating subtly as if it had a heartbeat. Callum swallowed hard. "Stay close, Titan," he whispered, voice tight. The dog pressed against his leg, fur bristling, ears pinned but obedient. Callum edged forward, hand hovering near the shimmering glass that hid the moving figure. The hand wavered, almost desperate, beckoning. Every instinct screamed caution, every memory screamed war. Yet curiosity, the dangerous spark that kept him alive in combat, urged him onward. The hand retreated suddenly, vanishing behind a pane of unbroken glass. Callum cursed under his breath. Damn it. He took a deep breath, scanning the room. The mansion itself seemed to pulse, walls shimmering faintly as a frozen figure shifted minutely when he wasn't looking directly. It was alive, not metaphorically alive, literally. The air shimmered with anticipation, and Callum realized with sickening certainty. The mansion was watching, learning, predicting their moves. The collector appeared again, stepping silently from a corridor that hadn't existed moments before. His expression was calm, almost tender, like a man showing off a prized collection. But Callum could feel the underlying menace, the subtle control he wielded. "You are beginning to understand," the collector said softly. "This house remembers everything. Every fear, every joy, every moment of loss. It responds to thought, to feeling, to memory. It feeds on what humans leave behind, and sometimes what they cannot leave behind." Callum swallowed, chest tightening. He realized with a jolt that Mason's frozen figure wasn't merely a memory trapped in glass. The mansion was feeding off the emotion tethered to it. The terror, the fear, the grief he felt for his friend all fueled the mansion's life. And now, the mansion had noticed them, felt them, and was responding. Titan barked sharply, spinning to face a wall that hadn't existed before. Callum followed his gaze and saw a new corridor opening, faint light spilling from its depths. It was lined with hundreds of glass figures, soldiers, children, civilians, each frozen mid-motion, their faces a mixture of terror, surprise, and pain. Some figures seemed to flicker ever so slightly, shadows of movement that made Callum's stomach churn. The collector moved closer, his thin hands clasped behind his back. "Do you understand now?" he asked. "Each moment preserved here is a heartbeat, a memory, and every heartbeat feeds the house. It is patient, but it is never satisfied. The mansion remembers, and it wants you to remember too." Callum's pulse raced. He reached out instinctively to the glass, to Mason, to the frozen soldiers, but Titan barked violently, snapping him back to reality. The mansion seemed to respond to Titan's aggression. The walls shimmered more violently, and faint echoes of voices whispered from the glass, a chorus of pleading, of trapped memories, filling the space with their desperation. Callum backed up, realizing with horror that the mansion wasn't just reserving moments, it was feeding on them. Each emotion, each memory, every pang of fear, loss, or pain made it stronger, and now that it had noticed them, it would try to trap them as well. The collector tilted his head, his thin smile chilling in its serenity. "You and your companion, you are perfect candidates. Your bond, your loyalty, your fear, it will serve the house well. But do not worry. If you are patient, it will be beautiful. Eternally beautiful." Callum's jaw tightened. He couldn't let this man, this house, take Mason or Titan or himself. He had survived countless ambushes, countless impossible situations, but this was different. This was a predator without shape or weapon, feeding off memory and emotion, controlled by a man who treated death and loss like art. He clenched his fists, feeling Titan nuzzle against his leg. The dog's intuition told him one thing. They couldn't stay here. The mansion would adapt, shift, and trap them if given a moment. Callum took a cautious step toward a corridor at the far end, eyes scanning for anything that could be used to break the glass or disrupt the mansion. His military training screamed at him, assess, plan, act. But the mansion itself made assessment nearly impossible. Doors appeared where walls had been, hallways twisted in impossible angles, reflections multiplied and fractured. The walls around them shimmered, and suddenly a figure, not frozen, not static, appeared at the end of the corridor. It was Mason, or someone who looked like him, moving slightly as if trying to escape the glass prison. His hand reached toward Callum, face twisted in silent terror. Callum's heart lurched. He lunged forward, slamming his hands on the glass, but it was solid, unnaturally strong, unyielding. Titan barked furiously, spinning in place, claws scraping against the smooth floor. The mansion responded instantly. Walls around them shimmered, light bending and twisting. Every figure in the hallway turned slightly, eyes following them. The mansion was alive, and it was angry. The collector's calm voice echoed through the space. "Do you see? It remembers everything. The more you fight, the more it reacts. It is patient, but it is learning. Soon it will take its due." Callum's mind raced. If the mansion fed on emotion, then fear and hesitation would only make it stronger. He had to stay focused. He had to save Mason, Titan, and himself. But the mansion was vast, endless in its glass corridors, and the collector's presence made it nearly impossible to act freely. Titan whimpered softly, pressing closer. Callum glanced down at him, heart tightening. The dog's reflection flickered in a shard glass nearby, and then vanished entirely. The mansion had claimed it, at least temporarily. "No," Callum whispered, anger and fear mingling. He pressed his palms against the glass, shaking, desperate to reach Mason. The mansion seemed to pulse beneath his hands, vibrating, alive. And then a whisper echoed across the corridor, a chorus of voices, faint but urgent, calling out in unison, "Stay with us, stay." Callum staggered back, gripping Titan's collar, heart pounding. He realized a horrifying truth. The mansion wasn't just reserving moments. It was feeding on life itself. And now it had chosen them. The collector appeared beside him, calm, almost tender. "Time is precious," he said softly. "The house remembers, and it will have what it is owed." Callum swallowed hard, chest tight. Titan growled, body coiled for action, but there was no clear path forward. Every corridor, every door, every reflection seemed alive and aware. And from behind a shimmering wall, Mason's hand reached out once more, trembling, pleading, desperate. Callum knew then that hesitation would be deadly. The mansion had sensed their fear, their uncertainty. And the moment he stepped wrong, It would claim them as it had Mason, as it had countless others. Titan barked sharply. Hackles raised as a section of the wall shimmered violently. Callum's stomach dropped. He realized the mansion itself was moving, reshaping, anticipating. The frozen figure's eyes followed them, subtle movements flickering, as if warning, as if promising that escape would not be easy. Callum took a deep breath, gripping Titan's collar tightly. He had no plan, only determination. Callum's heart pounded in his chest as he stumbled through the shifting corridors of the mansion. The walls pulsed faintly, refracting light and shadow in ways that made the world seem unreal. Every step brought a chorus of whispers, the voices of those trapped in glass, pleading, begging, and warning. Each echo clawed at his mind, feeding the mansion, making it more alive, more dangerous. He didn't stop. Not for fear, not for hesitation, not for anything. Mason's face haunted him, frozen mid-scream. Titan had vanished, taken into the mansion's grip. Callum clenched his fists. I won't lose him. Not him. Not Mason. Not anyone else. The hall twisted ahead, and a faint glow spilled from a massive chamber. Callum stepped inside and froze. The room was enormous, the ceiling lost in shadows. Thousands of glass figures filled the space, suspended mid-motion, faces flickering between hope and despair. Some shimmered faintly, moments of life frozen and stored. Among them, Callum saw soldiers he recognized, civilians, a mother reaching for a child, even a man who could have been himself, all trapped in eternity. And there, in the center, stood the Collector. Titan was in his arms, safe but trembling, eyes wide with fear. The pendant containing his own reflection glimmered in the Collector's hand. Callum's chest tightened. "Let him go!" he shouted, voice echoing unnaturally in the vast chamber. The Collector smiled, calm, almost tender. "Ah, Callum, I was wondering how long it would take you to arrive. You see, this mansion does not merely preserve. It feeds on what it remembers. Your fear, your grief, your loyalty, all of it sustains this place. And now it hungers for you." Callum's mind raced. He had to act fast. He scanned the room, searching for anything that could disrupt the glass, anything that could save Titan and Mason. He noticed a narrow beam of sunlight streaming from a crack high in the ceiling, striking a cluster of frozen figures. The glass shivered under the light, faintly vibrating. Summoning every ounce of courage and strength, Callum ran, hand raised, and slammed into glass figures. The mansion reacted instantly. The walls pulsed, shimmering violently. The Collector's calm smile faltered for the first time. "Stop," he hissed. "You don't understand what you are doing." Callum ignored him. He smashed through the figures nearest him, shards of glass scattering harmlessly in midair, suspended by the mansion's strange laws. He reached the central chamber where the Collector held Titan. "Titan!" Callum shouted. The dog barked, and the pendant in the Collector's hand rattled, almost as if frightened. Callum lunged, breaking the fragile connection between the mansion's energy and Titan's reflection. Titan leapt from the Collector's grasp, landing solidly at Callum's side. The Collector's eyes narrowed, lips curling in a faint sneer. "Very well, if you insist." He raised a hand, and the mansion groaned, walls twisting violently as glass figures shimmered and swayed. "Then you shall join them." Callum gritted his teeth. He took a deep breath, focusing all his pain, fear, and fury into a single thought: freedom. The mansion pulsed, reacting to his concentrated emotion, the glass figures flickering as if aware. The walls rippled violently, almost sentient, but Callum pushed forward, dragging Titan with him. He reached a central wall of glass, the heart of the mansion. Beyond it, he could see Mason's frozen form, suspended mid-fall. Callum pressed his hands against the glass, screaming with all the strength in his voice and soul. The mansion shuddered, walls cracking and bending, figures flickering and breaking, as if the concentrated will of a soldier could disrupt its perfection. For a moment, everything was still. Then, with a deafening shatter, the glass fractured like liquid under pressure. Mason tumbled free, landing in Callum's arms. Titan leapt beside them, growling, fierce and alive. The Collector screamed, a sound of rage and disbelief, as the mansion convulsed violently. Walls twisted, figures cracked and fell, light refracted wildly. The mansion's pulse weakened. Callum pulled Mason and Titan through the chaos, running toward the faint glow of sunlight at the far edge of the chamber. They burst through the glass doors into the forest. Sunlight struck their faces, warm and real. Mason coughed, blinking in disbelief. Titan barked joyfully, tail wagging as he circled them. Callum collapsed to his knees, chest heaving, adrenaline and relief mingling in a heady rush. The mansion behind him shivered one last time, glass walls shimmering faintly, then settled into eerie silence. The collector was gone, vanished with his creation, leaving nothing but broken glass and memories suspended in the shards that littered the ground. Mason looked at Callum, eyes wide with gratitude and disbelief. How did you? Callum shook his head, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I didn't have a choice. You know that. Neither did Titan. He reached down to scratch the dog's ears. Titan barked happily, nudging his hand. For the first time in years, Callum felt peace. Not complete peace. The shadows of the past would never leave him entirely. But measure of hope and the knowledge that bonds forged in life and war could withstand even the impossible. The forest around them was quiet again, but alive. Birds sang, wind stirred the leaves, and sunlight danced across the clearing. The mansion, hidden in the trees, remained a mystery, but for now, they were free. Callum glanced at Mason and Titan, feeling gratitude, relief, and quiet triumph. We're safe, he said softly. For now. The sun climbed higher, warm and forgiving, and Callum allowed himself a long, deep breath. They had survived the mansion, faced its horrors, and emerged intact. If you enjoyed this story of loyalty, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a soldier and his dog, remember to cherish every moment with those you love. Some moments, once lost, can never be recovered,